I just got this awesome rekeying kit for Schlage locks. They call this one their retail kit. I'll put a link to it in the description below. There's also a commercial kit that includes more stuff like pins for master keying. Master keying is where you set up the pins so two different keys can open the same lock. I just need to do some regular rekeying of some Schlage locks, so the retail kit is fine for me. Realistically, this kit is significantly more than I need. There's cheaper kits out there that are smaller, but I felt more comfortable going with the Schlage branded pins. I'm also a real sucker for the nice blue metal storage box that it comes with. Nice job, Schlage. Just take my money. When I was shopping around, I couldn't find a video with anyone using this kit. I thought it would be cool to do a short tour of the kit and rekey a lock with it. It comes with a cylinder cap removal tool for two different size caps. This is used to depress a spring-loaded retention pin that holds the cap in place while unscrewing it. We'll check that out later. It has a plastic follower bar that's used to push the lock plug out of the cylinder housing. It comes with a key gauge that can be used to measure the cuts on a key so that you know what pins to use. The gauge also has cutouts for popping off lock-related retaining pins and clips. The most important part to me is all the bottom pins that you get. It has one size of regular top pins, but unlikely I'll even need those unless if I accidentally lose one from a lock that I'm working on. The rest of the kit is basically just spare parts that you probably won't need if you're just doing simple rekeying. It's nice to have extra springs, retaining pins, and other parts though. The only thing that I think is missing from this kit is a pair of tweezers. Luckily I have a tweezer set for working on electronics. They aren't the exact kind that you typically see being used for locksmithing, but they should work okay. Come on Schlage, throw in some tweezers. Let's try rekeying a lock. Factory cut keys often come with pin numbers stamped on the key. I'm going to rekey my lock with this old key that doesn't have any numbers stamped on it. I'll use the key gauge to measure each cut in the key starting from the shoulder of the key, which is pin 1. Note that neither of these keys are ones that I actually use, so please don't try and break into my house. This is the first time I've ever rekeyed a lock, so just know that I'm not a professional. If you're looking to do the same thing, you need to evaluate if this is something that you're capable of doing or if you should call a locksmith. When in doubt, hire out. Removing the lock cylinder on this one is just a single Phillips screw. The cylinder just slides right out. Inserting the correct key allows you to turn the plug in this cylinder, which rotates the driver bar on the back. Before taking things apart further, I think it would be helpful to explain what's going on internally when you insert and turn the key. The key gets inserted into the plug, which resides inside the cylinder housing. On top is a rectangular area that houses a set of springs that push down onto some pins that are referred to as the top pins. These pins protrude down into the lock plug and prevent it from rotating. Inside the plug is another set of pins referred to as the bottom pins. These line up with the top pins that are above them. The bottom pins are different sizes that correspond with the cuts on the key. When you insert the key, it pushes the bottom pins up until they're flush with the top of the plug. As the bottom pins move up, they push against the top pins so that they exit the plug and are sitting above it in the top housing. Now we have a space between the top and bottom pins, which is referred to as the shear line. Turning the key at this point allows the plug to rotate in the cylinder housing and opens the lock. Inserting the wrong key will either cause the top pins to still be inside the plug, or it will push the bottom pins partway into the upper housing. Both conditions will prevent the plug from being turned in the cylinder housing. To rekey the lock, we want to replace the bottom pins with new pins that match a different key. For a simple rekey, we can just keep the same top pins. The back cap is screwed on and is retained by a spring-loaded pin. We can use the cap removal tool to simultaneously depress the retention pin and unscrew the cap. Inside the cap is a driver bar and a little C-clip that allows the retaining pin to poke through. We need to remove the retaining pin and the spring that's underneath it. To get the plug out, we need to insert the current key and turn it so the bottom pins no longer interact with the top pins. We can then push the plug out with the follower bar tool. This prevents the top pins and springs from shooting out. The orientation of the follower bar tool matters because you don't want to allow the C shape of the tool ends to be positioned in such a way that would allow the top pins to shoot out. The opening of the C should face to the sides, not up and down where the pins want to go. Now that we have the plug removed, you can get a look at the bottom pins. They should sit flush with the top of the plug with the key still inserted. At this point, you could just dump all the pins out, but I'm going to pull them out one at a time so I can keep track of them for now. Now I'm going to insert my new key and place the new pins in one by one. I'm using the little chart that I made earlier from measuring the key cuts with the key gauge. Each pin that goes in should be flush with the top of the plug. Now that all the pins are in place, I'm going to push the plug against the follower bar tool to put the plug in place and force the follower tool out. I'm taking care to keep the C shape of the follower bar tool oriented correctly and to keep the plug turned to the side so the bottom pins don't come into contact with the top pins yet. I messed up a little pushing the follower out. The last top pin is poking down and blocking the plug from fully entering the cylinder housing. I can gently push the top pin up with my tweezers while lightly pushing the plug in. Awesome, it's in and the plug spins freely. Now I can reassemble the rear cap by putting in the spring and retaining pin. Then I will use the cap removal tool to depress the pin while screwing the cap back on. You don't want to screw the cap on too tight, otherwise it will bind against the plug and make the lock hard to turn. If it ends up being a little tight, it's easy to use the removal tool to back the cap out a little bit. That's about it. Now you can put the cylinder back in the lock body and you're good to go. This kit from Schlage is pretty great. It's kind of overkill in my case, but still super fun. Hope you had fun too. If you found this video useful, please give it a like and consider subscribing. Catch you next time.